Welcome to this episode of Stumbling Through Growth, honest conversations about life's journey. So one of my favorite things in the world is having deep conversations with real people about things, real things. Life is messy. We know it's not clean. It's not linear. And I think we often think once we've worked through a life lesson that we're done with it, that we've learned what we needed to, but unfortunately that's not usually the case. These things tend to pop up time and again. And one thing I would like to get people to get from these conversations is that we all have messy growth journeys. I know I'm learning all the time. So I started this podcast to share these discussions with some of the people that inspire me the most. My guest today is Dr. Lawrence von Drake Fitz. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm going to read a little of your bio, but it's like so varied and extensive. I can't possibly cover it all, but I want to just give people an idea of who you are and, some of your background. So, from performing arts and entertainment production to mentorship and youth resilience to leadership development to diversity, equity, inclusion, you've pretty much done it all. Here are a few highlights that I pulled out. In the arts and entertainment space, you're a nationals level show choir judge, performance clinician, and show designer. You served as director, producer, costume, and show designer, vocal arranger, and instructor of both a conducting and voice studio. You're the executive and arts director of the Celebration Entertainment Academy. In the DEI space, you focus on social and educational justice, leadership, and present nationally on the topics of mentorship, human capital development, and arts advocacy. And in the leadership development space, Lawrence has extensive experience in the fields of education, working in public institutions, Fortune 500 corporations, and nonprofit organizations. He's been honored with Service Award of Distinction from California State Senate for your commitment to inspiring vision and leadership excellence, and received a commendation from the California Assembly for your dedication and support in mentoring youth. You also serve on multiple boards and advisory groups. I don't know how you have time to do this, so thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, that's just like, that didn't even scratch the surface. That's like a little taste of some of your background and accomplishments. So thank you so much for being here and taking
You're
the time out of
welcome.
your ridiculous schedule to be here with me. I so appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. When you read that, it reminds me why I'm tired, and then it reminds me too of a time I applied for a job and I had put together my resume or CV for that, and the recruiting firm got back to me and she says, the hiring agency just does not believe you. There's no way possible that a human could have done all the things that you've done. And I go, well, I've had a full time job and then I do stuff outside of my full time job and
Right.
it's all there. So, anyway, it does seem a little bit extra, but it's all true.
Oh, I believe you fully. And that's not even, I mean, I literally just pulled out very high level stuff and then a couple of
Yeah.
highlights, but there's so much there. There's like so much richness. It's just amazing. Which is part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because you have such a varied background. I'd like to start with a question that I'm asking all of my guests, which is, who is Lawrence? Not what you do, because we've talked a little bit about that, but who you are, like who is the core of you, unless you're adamant that what you do is who you are, which is 100% fine, of course.
Lawrence is one who helps people to help themselves, I would say. I'm interested in people's stories and their lived experiences, their struggles, their successes, and I like to, where I can, I know about some things, but not about all things, and I like to show up for people and help them get to where they want to be. But I'm not going to do the work for them. I want to help them be able to do the work and fill the knowledge gaps that are there. So I would say that's really who I am at my
I
core.
love that. Yeah. I mean, I think that sort of showing up for people, we're going to touch on that in a minute, because you absolutely do that in ways that I think most people don't. But I wanted to just touch on this one other thing for a second, and we talked about this the other day, but I was sort of captivated by the tagline on your Facebook profile, this simple, complicated me. And I think you borrowed that. Was it Barbara Streisand that you said you borrowed that from?
It's a song lyric of hers, yes.
Okay. What does that mean to you? Simple, complicated
Gosh.
me.
I believe in my mind and the purity of my heart, I'm very simple. The things I desire, the things that nurture and fulfill me are quite simple. However, I think that to people outside of my mind and my heart, it may appear or come across as complicated. And so I find that sometimes I have to go into an exercise of explaining my intent or really sharing how I simply would rather have a conversation one on one with someone like you than go to a party where there's loud music bumping and drinks flying and all that. Well, Lauren, she's so much fun. Yeah, but that doesn't serve me. I just want to be able to be in the space with someone that I can hear, that I can listen to, that I can share with, and we can maybe connect at a heart space. And so to me, it's very simple, but to
Yeah.
others, they don't understand.
I think that's really interesting, because I'm very much the same. Like there's a couple of reasons for that. I think that what you just said for me is absolutely like being able to just connect like heart to heart with somebody and have like a proper like a real conversation. Like as I said, the reason I started this podcast to have these conversations. But also like I find myself if I'm in a large space, even a group of maybe I don't know 15, 20 people, like I'm listening to all the conversations. I'm not part of any of the conversations. Because there's so much going on that I'm like, I'm listening and I'm like, that's interesting. That's it. But I don't interject myself in that way. And I'm just kind of, I feel like I'm hovering above it all. And there's just, and I don't mean in it like I'm above it all, but I mean like literally I just feel like I'm out of body in a way and just kind of observing and I'm not part of it.
I'm right there with you. I
Yeah.
always say you'll find me in the periphery of the room observing what's happening. And
Yeah.
I'm listening and learning as best I can, but I can't be a part of that because to me it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's too much work and I don't want to do it.
I love that honesty. It is a lot of work. Right? I mean, I'm definitely an introvert. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Ambivert is this phrase I hear sometimes, right? Or omnivert. But I think I'm like in a one-on-one or one-on-few conversation like situation. If I'm comfortable, I'm very extroverted. But if I'm in that situation with all the people, I'm like, no, I'm just hanging back. I might be physically in the like in community, but I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I'm with
I
you.
know. So I get you. And I think it is simple, but yes, I think people think it's complicated or they think, whatever. People think what they're going to think, right?
Yeah,
That's,
they certainly do.
there's not much you can do about that. I wanted to just check in with you on this other idea, and then I'm definitely coming back to how you show up for people. I know that you have a very strong relationship with your mother, Miss Pat.
Yeah, I do.
You might even say that you're best friends. So
Mike.
I'm curious, like, what you learned from her growing up, and what else shaped you in your childhood.
Oh my word. I would say the thing that stands out to me the most is my mother and my grandmother, her mother, whom we called Big Mama, that was what everybody who loved her called her, they modeled for me what a high value, loving relationship looks like from mother to child. And so my mom had me kind of young, the day after her 19th birthday. And so as a result, my mom was kind of like, could function as a big sister in some ways. And my grandmother was always the maternal figure. But growing up, my grandmother passed in 1994, unfortunately, and I miss her every single day. But the lessons that I learned, my mom carried so many of those with her, and the relationship model that was already formulated is what I know. And so it's what I practice, it's what I believe in, and I know everybody has their own unique relationships with their mothers, but mine with my mom is it nurtures me. We have a bond that is so very strong, and she often talks about me taking a red pen to her paper, her notes to my school when I was in elementary or junior high school, and I would correct her letters to the school with a red pen and tell her to rewrite them so I wouldn't be embarrassed when I got to school. And she says that I was always her best teacher, that I taught her so many things and helped her become a strong writer and a strong oral communicator as well. But yeah, my mom is delightful, and so many of my dearest friends you know, refer to my mom as one of their moms because she just embraces all, and people turn to her for guidance, counsel, and such, which is, makes me feel great that I have a mom that people want to be around because not
Yeah.
everybody's mom is desired like that.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, absolutely. And what I think is really cool is that you know that about her because a friend of mine lost her mother recently, and her mother was in she was in a nursing home for the last, I want to say, probably year and a half of her life. And when her daughter, my friend, went into, after she had passed, and like the staff were like, "Oh my God, your mom was like, she was like the mother of the nursing home, and like she was like she was so much to so many people." But I don't think her daughter knew that in life as much. Like she learned a lot more about her, or at least that aspect of her,
Hmm.
after she had passed. And I think what you just said is like, it's so cool that you know that about her now while she's here.
Yes.
That because you have that, not that she didn't have a good relationship with her mother, I don't mean to insinuate that, but it was obviously a very different relationship than you have, or she was different with other people, which is often the case, I think, with parents, that they're
Oh yeah.
different with other people than they are with us.
Well, and Big Mama used to always say, "Oh, you're always the same person." And to her,
Mm,
that meant you're not two-faced, you're consistent in your behavior, and my mom is the same way. And last year, my mom had some health issues,
hmm
and she was hospitalized a few times and spent some time in a nursing home and in a board and care home.
mm,
But because I know my mom so well, as the year went on, May, June, July, I saw that her behavior had started to shift some. And I knew something wasn't right.
yeah,
And I only knew that because I know her so well and I know how consistent she is. And so when her behavior changed, and I could look in her eyes and see that she wasn't 100%, something wasn't quite there. And so, I take pride in when we go to the doctor, I can tell the physicians, this is what's different. This is,
mm,
what's changed. I know this is how my mom always is. And so a lot of kids can't say that about their
right.
parents. And so I do take pride in that. My mom has scores of children. She only birthed one, but she has scores of. But I'm the one who would be able to recognize the change in the behavior, or
Mm,
the lack of consistency.
yeah, yeah, which is important to have somebody like
Hmm.
that in your life. Do you think that your tendency to correct her notes, I love that so much. Do you think that your tendency to correct her notes was like a clue to your future as an educator,
It has to be.
right?
It has to be. Well, even when I was a kid, I remember these are in my early years. Like I would say, kindergarten, first grade. My mom would make me come home from school, and I had to read aloud to her every day. And
Mm,
she'd be in the kitchen preparing dinner, and she would hear me say a word wrong or something. She would say, "Stop, reread that, and then read it aloud again. Find the error." My
mm,
mom bought. I'm of a particular age, by the way. So my
mm-hmm.
mom would buy phonics records, and we would sit on the floor on Saturdays and play these phonics records, and they all color coded, and we would sit on the floor together, which I don't do much of anymore. But we would sit on the floor
It's hard
together,
to get up these days.
maybe okay, and but my mom made learning fun. I think is where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
She made me want to learn. She made me appreciate words and language
Mm,
and vocabulary and sentence form. And so as I got older, I really connected with being a strong writer and being a strong oral communicator because it was always made fun for me. Math, not as much fun. But
mm-hmm.
I think that looking at the notes, I just basically applied what she told me as a little kid to what was happening when I was an older kid.
Yeah.
And but my mom was never offended. She was like, "Well, thank you for making it right," And so,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, I do think it contributed to my future aspiration as an educator. But however, as you kind of intimated early on in our time today, I have a lot of interests, and
Mm-hmm.
I tend to challenge myself to see if I can do the thing. Whatever the thing is, I
Mm,
want to know if I can. And so I was not on a trajectory to be an educator initially. I knew I wanted to work with people,
Yeah.
but educator was not on the list necessarily at the top, but that's where I ended up.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Um, and then speaking of you being an educator, you know where I'm going with this one. So if I didn't include this part of your bio, it would be just wrong. So, because this is how we got connected, right? So in your bio, performers from Fitz's programs have gone on to Tony and Emmy nominated leading and featured roles on Broadway and have entertained audiences with careers in major theme parks and on cruise lines, while myriad others are thriving with careers on TV and film. Fabulous. One of these performances, of course, Tony and Emmy nominated Eden Espinosa, who is why we're connected, who you taught in high school, right?
Yes.
You were one of her teachers in high school.
Yes.
So I reached out to her to just ask her a little about you because one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is that I've seen how you talked about how you kind of show up for people, right? So how you show up for your past students. You taught Eden however many years ago, we won't count, but you're still on her socials, cheering her on and still showing up for her in shows and concerts. You go way, way, way above and beyond. And so I did reach out to Eden and said, I told her that we were doing this. And I just said, can you just share some thoughts about Lawrence? You met, she said they referred to you as Diva Fitz, which I thought was awesome. I absolutely love that. Okay. She said, the things that I love the most about you, Lawrence, is your dedication to education, your dedication to your students, your dedication to your craft and your knowledge, the knowledge that you've acquired over the years, and in the way that you move in people's lives is through the most beautiful lens of love and compassion and care and wisdom. She is forever grateful that you have been a pillar in her life and supporter in her life since she was a teenager. So that's what our friend Eden had to say. But that's like the core of you, right? That you are this pillar in people's lives and a supporter of the people that you have been, you and she were, you were her teacher, a couple of dozen years ago, whatever. And so you stay connected with people and you continue to support them in ways that I don't think most teachers would and do. And I'm just so curious about that. Like, I know that you and she are friends, but you support others too in similar ways. It's not just with Eden. So I think it's remarkable how you do that. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about that from you.
Well, I'm appreciative of her words. I didn't know when I started out because Eden and her school, Canyon High School in Anaheim Hills here in California, was my very first foray into taking on a choir and trying to help them compete successfully. I was still an undergraduate in a music education program, and I had the opportunity to be there half the week with the choir. They had the one choir that I was responsible for. Anyway, I say all that to say I didn't know that I would feel compelled as I started to grow in my career as a music educator to show up for my students. But in my mind, it was the right thing. And I'll say, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but the focus of my dissertation for my doctorate was on mentoring. And, showing up is all throughout mentoring, as you know. Even when Eden was helming Limpica, I was in my kitchen, and I thought, she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Not just herself as an artist, but the success or failure of a show on the lead is so humongous. So not just keeping your body and your voice and your mind and your heart well, but also carrying their livelihood to the technicians and the artists on stage. And I remember texting her and I said, don't lose yourself in this work. It's beautiful. And I know that you have toiled, but don't lose you in the work. And so we had a dialogue about that. I don't think she'd mind me sharing that. But I say all that to say I show up because I think it's important for people to know they're still home. You're the foundation that helped support you as you were learning and journeying to be at the pinnacle, whatever that is for you, is still here. The arms are still outstretched for you. And so that's why I get on the airplanes. And, when she took over in Wicked on Broadway, when Idina went out and she got, the lead as the second Alphabet on Broadway, I needed to be there to remind her of home. I'm not the only one that does that for her, of course. Last night, I was just at the Pantages Theater here in Hollywood, seeing Hell's Kitchen, because one of my students, who is much younger than Eden, is on her first national tour. And so I took my mom, who was on my staff at the time, and I took two other friends of mine who were on my staff, that she knew, and to remind her of home. This is your foundation. This is your support system. And so when it gets all crazy and everything, just know where you came from. Know that the love that helped you come out of your shell, as she said to me last night, that I helped her come out of her shell as a singer, the love and trust that was present to allow that is still here. So, and that's, I don't know, it's a long-winded answer to your question, but showing up is vital. And I remember on a TV, one of the court shows, the judge says, your word is your bond. So if I tell you I'm going to show up for you and I'm going to be there in the house to cheer you on and send you all the positive vibes I can, there's nothing that's going to stop me from doing that other than death. That's just who I am. It's what I believe.
But that is remarkable. Like that's not typical. Like you have to know that. But it's not though.
Yeah, I guess I'm not a typical person. That is true.
No. I mean, I think, saying like you're not the only one that shows up. I mean, that's probably true, but I don't think what you do for the people that you have helped shape is typical. And I think, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I just reached out to her today and said, hey, I'm doing this thing. Do you like literally within minutes, I had a voice memo to say, here's the, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's a reciprocal thing, right? I think we talked about that a tiny bit before, where it's not just that the students, that you show up for the students, but the sort of students show up for you. Like there's a reciprocal relationship there that is right. It's very meaningful, I think. And I think that's important. I think that it's often, I think sometimes students reach back to teachers to say thank you, right? I've done that once, literally once. But it's not, I don't think it's often that teachers stay that connected with the people that they have helped shape in the way that you do.
I
think it's fabulous.
Kara, thank you. I remember as a young conducting student, and my conductor, who is still very present in my life, she retired, and then the university said, we need an interim president. Will you come back? Because she had, ascended through the ranks, and so she just, signed off again as interim president of the university where I went to school and learned how to be a music educator. And I served on her board for Vox Femina Los Angeles, Dr. Iris Levine. But I remember her telling us as her students, your singers, your choristers, they are modeling or giving you vocally what you're giving them physically and visually. And so if you cue a shallow breath, you're going to get a shallow breath out of your singers because they're always watching. They're emulating what you're giving. It's like a call and response. And so in my mind, that extends beyond the podium. So if I show up for my people and I show them love and support, or if I feel like they may be having a rough season, even though they're, on the top of the world, to the maybe lay person, if you will, I can't think of a better term.
I know what you mean.
But
yeah.
I feel like if I do that, then it sets a model for someone else to do that, to show up for their people. and it becomes reciprocal. Then that becomes the standard or the new norm for the people that maybe I have touched. Now they're going to touch somebody in that manner as well. So then it's kind of giving that out into the world. And that to me is beautiful.
It is. Yeah.
That to me is beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that there's energy. I mean, not to get all kind of woo woo, but like energy is a real thing, right? And it flows in interesting ways. And I think that like one of the gifts, I'm not going to get into my whole Limpika story because we could be here all day. But my experience with the show as an audience member and how it has changed my life, and my experience with Eden's performance and how it has changed my life, that it has opened me up to being more authentically myself in a way of like the things that are in my heart, I'm now sharing in ways that I don't think I've ever really done before. And certainly not as openly. And I think about what you were just saying about, that sort of, if you showing up and sharing and doing the things that you do sort of, maybe creates a model. For me, one of the reasons I do it is for me, and obviously for the people that I do it for, but also to model that and sort of, and let people know that it's okay, and like, I know I come across as like, this is like crazy effusive person sometimes for certain people, but that's what I feel, and I'm just going to do it. And I don't, one of the things I've been trying to do more of lately too is that, there have been some losses in, as there are losses in life, there always are. And there was one in particular, this person who I didn't really know really, really well, somebody that I worked with, and she died a couple of years ago, very suddenly, at least suddenly to us. And she was young, she was my age, and I think a little young, actually she was younger than me. But she was one of the sweetest, kindest people I had really come across in a long time. And I never told her that I appreciated that about her. Like I never, sorry, I'm going to get emotional, but I never told her that. And one of the reasons why, as a gay woman, I've always felt very reticent to express feelings of affection for other women in case they're misconstrued. So feelings of friendship, affection for other people, other women, I've been very hesitant to do that. And one of the things that her passing taught me was to just just do it. You know what I mean? Because like, people don't know. They're not going to know how they might have impacted your life or how you feel about them unless you tell them. Like feelings don't work through osmosis. I mean, sometimes they do, but mostly they don't, right? So I'm very much on that sort of, and I post about it like every now and then, but like, tell your people you love them, because they might not know. And this woman, certainly wasn't somebody who I would have said I love you to, but I would have said to her how much I appreciated her way of being and how kind she was. And I never did that. And I always regret that. I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but that's one. But and I know that, like I said, part of it was because as a gay woman, I've just always been very reticent, is the only word I can think of, to share those feelings. And so I feel like now I'm just modeling a different way of being for myself and maybe for others. So
we have to tell them.
We have to.
Because a lot of times we go through our lives doing the work, being of service, but not really knowing that there's any impact. And even at dinner on Sunday, I had dinner with two alums of mine that graduated in, 1999. And one of them is trans. And she told me the way I showed up as a gay black man in their basically very homogenized, white-centric community as their choir teacher helped her feel courageous when she wasn't trans yet, and helped her feel supported. The other student that was there is a single 40-something-year-old white guy that has a mixed-race baby that he adopted at birth by himself. And I get to be the uncle to this beautiful boy.
Yeah.
And I feel like, for me, I've always believed in we may be connected by blood, but that doesn't mean you're my family, right? You're my
Yeah.
relative if we're connected by blood
Yeah.
or by marriage. You're my relative. But I have the privilege of creating my own family. And my
Yep.
family is interwoven with so many former students of mine and their families who treat me like I matter so much. And so to be at dinner in 2026 on Sunday last week and have them tell me something that moved them in 1999. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was trying hard.
You were doing something right.
I was doing something, and I was showing up, and
Yeah.
my bar was set high for me and for them. And I go, okay, it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so when I think back to my teachers, I remember Debbie Player, my typing teacher in high school, Dave Willard, my choir teacher in high school, Mary Ann Plummer, one of the toughest teachers I ever had, English teacher in high school. And I can go on and on through
Yeah.
my undergraduate, master's, and doctoral programs. Who were the ones who were pivotal? I have tried to tell each of them over the years how they impacted me because they deserve to know. I'm going to say one more thing. Speaking of the value of mentorship, this past November, I took a road trip by myself to Arizona because I wanted to see one of my former students who's family to me. She's a mother of 3 girls, and I had not been able to go to where she moved to when she relocated there. I was able to spend time with her and her girls and her husband and her parents who moved there as well. And then I drove about 3 hours or so away to visit the woman who promoted me to my first leadership role in school administration. And I sat with her. She lives in a like a board and care home, and she's in her 80s. And I sat there and shared with her the things that she said and did to me, how she poured into me, how she had faith in me. And she said, Lawrence, I never knew. And I said, well, Myrna, that's why I'm here right now, because you deserve to know. She said, you came all this way? I said, yes, because I wanted to see you. But it's important to me as I get older and I have more years behind me than I do in front of me to make sure that I let people know the impact they've had on me. And you deserve to hear this from my mouth and looking in my face.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's important to me. And you can see that it moves me. And I don't mean to be a second, but it's important to me.
Yeah, it's clear. And I think it's important to the people that you talk to, that you tell those things to. But I think that, what I just like flip back to what Eden just said, that you move in people's lives is through the most beautiful lens of love, compassion, and care and wisdom. And that's it. That's what we've been just talking about, that all of that, all of the care, all of the wisdom.
Well,
In that.
too, with that, I have taught a number of subjects in my career. The most profound for me has been music, performance, singing, stage presence, entertainment. But at my core, I've always said that I've always said that I want to teach and help contribute to the raising of good citizens. I want people who are upstanding, who are respectful, who are self-assured, who have the tools they need. I care less about, are they the best singer? Do they have the biggest voice? Do they have the strongest breath support and control? But are they kind? Do they show up for other people? Are they people of their word? That stuff for me is really all the foundational pieces. And then the show stuff is all on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the icing.
Yeah. No, I think I think there's so much in that. Like that, if we had more kind people, God, please, I mean, I don't know. We're in a mess right now, right?
Place. Yes.
The world will be a different place if we just had more kindness and more people who thought and cared about other people. it would be a different place.
You can't put yourself first all the time. You can't lose yourself, but you can't put yourself first all the time.
Right. I mean, I think that there's a balance, right? There's, putting yourself first from the perspective of taking care of yourself is very different than putting yourself first above everybody else.
Pushing people
From
out
a,
of your way.
right. Yeah. Like I'm more important, therefore, as opposed to I'm important to me, therefore I must take care of myself. You know? But it doesn't mean that you're more important than anybody else.
That's right.
Because we're all, all humans having this experience, and yeah, I wish there was more kindness. I think I'll just leave that. There's so many places that conversation could go.
That's true.
But I think and I think this next sort of thing that I wanted to touch on feeds into that, or feeds from that, is like, I call this podcast Stumbling Through Growth, because I think we are kind of stumbling our way through lives in ways, and we're always learning lessons. And when you and I talked before, you talked about, you had this idea or this notion of like lessons building upon each other.
I know oftentimes I'll talk about there was a lesson in that, or when I talk to somebody who comes to me for, counsel or guidance or support, I'll say, well, was there a lesson in that? What did you learn from the experience? What would you repeat next time, or maybe not repeat if you could have a do-over, right?
Yeah.
And but I think the lessons show up sometimes more than once if you didn't learn it, or at least the lesson you did learn and you recognize, oh, it's here again. Now I know what to do. Now I have practiced. Yeah, I know what to do now. But there, same for me, there are a number of life lessons. And I look back, I'm very reflective. Because I'm a particular age, I talk about having tapes in my head, so I pop the tape in and rewind it to where I need to go and replay the tape. But as a leader of people and organizations, I feel like every day when I finish my work, I must sit with myself and ask myself, what did I do today? How did I impact someone? Did I say something with words or in a tone that was hurtful or harmful to somebody else? Can I try and fix it? Or is it beyond repair at this point? But every day I reflect. Every single day I reflect. Now, some people use journals and things, and this is me writing, because some people write. A lot of people want to type them or memo record, but I sit with me. But I do try and learn the lesson. I extract the lesson from the day, from the experience. And I tripped last night, well, not physically, but, verbally, and I probably need to have a conversation today to fix that. And I see the scene in my head. But that's important to me to do that, to not leave people feeling less than when they connected with me. If we could do more of that, like you said a moment ago, the world would be a much better place than it is.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think like how lucky are the people that are under your leadership then, to have a leader that reflects, that takes the time to actually think about, what did I do? How did I impact? Is there something I could have, should I have said this thing? Should I have that? I do some of that myself, not all the time. And sometimes it's overthinking.
That,
At
that
least
part.
in that part, right? But I think like, you mentioned earlier that you're a black gay man, and that comes with maybe certain ways of moving in the world. We did talk about that a little bit, that you as a black gay man, and certainly there are oftentimes where you are the only black man or person even in leadership that many of the people working with you have experienced. And how does that make you move in the world, in that world?
Well, I'm aware that we are all, like I said before, someone's always listening, someone's always watching. And I am not the spokesperson or the representative of the people who check the same boxes that I check. However, I am fully and keenly aware that people especially when I travel to Indianapolis, for example, and I go up in the suburbs where a lot of times it's the spaces are quite white centric. I'm cognizant that sometimes I am, one of the few that they've worked with. So how I carry myself, how I show up, the words I choose, the level of care that I infuse in my work, how I criticize, because as a judge, I'm paid to be critical and give feedback, but that feedback must be constructive.
Mm-hmm.
It must be from a lens of education and teaching. But I don't ever want to put an impression out in the world that I wouldn't want other people like me that check the same boxes to be identified by. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just aware that there's a responsibility with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use the N word. I don't care for the N word.
Yeah.
I don't care, colloquially it's utilized, and in certain spaces when I'm with relatives, they'll use it, and it just doesn't come out of my mouth like that. It makes me uncomfortable to hear
Mm-hmm.
it, to say it. I don't want to be identified that way. And, I remember, being, when I learned about being anti racist and what that actually means. And so when I'm in spaces and I see behavior or hear behavior, I speak to it if I feel that it needs to be spoken to, because that, again, is a responsibility. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered the question. I hope that I
No, you
did.
did. You absolutely did. I hear what you're saying about like you want to comport yourself as you, right? Your truth is you don't use the N word. You understand that you're maybe the first, black male leader that, people have experienced, and you want them to have, I'm paraphrasing here, but you want them to have a positive experience of you. I think that the expectation that sometimes society puts on us to be the best, check the box that we can be, is unreasonable. But I think if we put some of that on ourselves, like, that's okay, right? If we want to be
It is
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, what you're saying, what I'm hearing, what I'm receiving is, we are aware that stereotypes exist,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't try to feed into those stereotypes in my behavior or my comportment when I'm
Yeah.
out in the world, and because I'm very aware of them. Yeah, I've lived
Mm-hmm.
many decades learning about and seeing these stereotypes that
Yeah.
exist. I It takes me back to probably, I don't know, 15 years ago or so, when I worked for my current employer the first time, and I was invited to serve on a panel. And the panel was hosted by the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender employee resource group.
Mm-hmm.
And so the moderator asked me a question, and she says, "How do you navigate being a leader in in this organization as a gay man?" And I said, "When I walk into a room, they see black way before they see gay. Yeah, the gay is there, but the black leads, because I can't
Mm-hmm.
do anything about it.
Right.
Not that I want to, but I can't.
Yeah.
So I have to deal with some of the, again, maybe the racial stereotypes first before we ever get to, to whom I am physically and emotionally attracted,
Yeah.
right? That may show up sometimes, but it's not the first thing that shows up. So me navigating life as a person who identifies as gay is less of a thing, because what I do in my work and in my socializing is I let people learn my heart early on. So then there's a level of, I don't know if I would say acceptance, but at least maybe a little bit of care first,
Yeah.
right? And so then the gay is less of a thing, because they already see me as a whole human and
Mm-hmm.
not just the gay dude or that black guy
Mm.
over there.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. I think that that explains how I try to move around in the world too.
Yeah.
I think that I want people to see me. Now, I obviously I'm white, and so I don't lead with, well, maybe I do lead with race because I'm white, but I definitely, I mean, when I talk about like not wanting to be stereotypical, I dress like a lesbian. I'm sorry. I just do. It's me. It's where how I'm comfortable, like whatever that means, right? But that sort of stereotypical, look at me. I'm in a blazer, I'm in a t-shirt, whatever. I have jeans on underneath. But so maybe I do lead with that. Maybe I do lead with lesbian, gay woman, queer, whatever. I don't know. For some people I do, for some people I don't. And that's okay, but I want people to know me as a person and know my heart. And I think yeah, if knowing me as a person helps somebody not have a hang up about gay people, then perfect. It's not what I'm trying to do in the world necessarily, but if that's something that I accomplish along the way, then I'm super happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one thing that I keep really at my core is the fact that I look at myself, for all people, as being a quilt. And two of my squares, I have one square that's black and one square that's gay. But think about all the other squares that make up who I am.
Right.
And so I really shed the light on the other squares and let people learn me through those. And then, like, it really becomes a non-issue at that point in most cases.
That's what you hope. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It becomes,
Yeah.
I'm a caring person. I am a doting uncle. I am an adoring son. All the things. I am a mentor, and I mean, there's just a myriad squares on my quilt, and I'm not limited to just those two.
I love that. That's so true. I love that. Yeah, because when I asked you at the beginning, like, who is Lawrence, you didn't say, I'm a black gay man. Like that,
No,
that
no.
wasn't right. That's not your identity. It's part of who you are, part of your quilt. I love that
Two of my
idea.
squares.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned mentorship, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, and earlier you mentioned your dissertation. So when you were going for your PhD, for your doctorate, you had your dissertation around mentorship, and so when you and I were talking last week, we had tried to have this, tried to tell me this story twice, and for some reason technology just went, no, and hopefully it doesn't do it again. But you had started to say that you wanted your dissertation on mentorship to be about how people had experienced you as a mentor, right? Am I remembering that right? And so, but you didn't, for I think a couple of different reasons you ended up not doing that. But tell me what that story was that you wanted to tell.
Well, yes, I have an EDD, a doctorate of education. So the EDD is really a practitioner's doctorate for people who are perhaps not going to pursue research and publishing as much, but really who people are still directly in the field, who are working with people and applying things directly with people regarding their lived experiences. And so I really wanted to learn about students who had been in my programs over the arc of my career and see if anything that they experienced, maybe with me, but really within my program as a student,
Yeah.
as maybe a staff member, did it impact them at all academically? Did it help them get through? Like for myself, I don't think I would have graduated high school had I not been in choir, because I showed up to school to make sure I could perform, because I wanted to be eligible, right? So that anchor for me helped me have good grades in high school. So I wanted to know if participation in my programs helped them academically. Did it help them professionally with their career aspirations? I mean, there's a minority of them that have gone into the arts, not a majority. But again, it was the tenets that I mentioned earlier about being good people, being able to, realize their dreams and such. Did it help them personally? Did they learn how to be resilient? Did they develop grit? Like things of that nature. So I wanted to know that. And so what I did was I had been invited by a dear friend of mine whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, Larry. to be the keynote speaker for a local college's psychology club day, and he wanted me to speak on the value of finding and building a relationship with a mentor while you're at the community college, so that you can successfully matriculate through that program and go on to whatever is going to be next for you. And so, in preparation for that, I sent out a request to 20 or so of my former students with some prompts and asked them to respond on camera to a couple of the prompts, not all five of them, but a couple of the prompts about their experience with me or in my programs. And the things that I got from that were so enriching. And another dear friend of mine spliced all of it together and helped me build a PowerPoint presentation where really my alums were able to kind of teach the workshop with me as a facilitator. And they spoke their stories to these young people
I love that.
and what they took away from being in my choral programs or my entertainment academy, and or even as one of my interns for the corporation I work for. And the reason why I didn't do it at the university as my doctoral dissertation was because it would have taken so much longer because of all the approvals, to interview human subjects. And, I'm not getting any younger. I just need, they said the best dissertation's a done dissertation. So I just got mine done, and it wasn't that. But what I learned, though, through that journey, my dissertation advisor, the chair of my committee, she says, this is not the end of your work. This is just a part of your work. So I just have continued my work on mentorship with that project that I used to speak to the Psychology Day members last year.
I love that. I love that you got, because this is what I was curious about when you were trying to tell me the story, and literally both times but one or both of our videos just completely froze. So, but I was
it's
so
good
curious.
Today, isn't it?
It's perfect today.
I've done some work in preparation
I see.
for today.
Thank you.
I got a whole new setup.
Oh my God, thank you. But I love that you got to do that. Well, that's what I was curious about. Did you actually get to hear those testimonials essentially? And you did, and I love that. I think that's fantastic.
I did.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, mentorship is powerful, and it's reciprocal too, right? I mean, we learn from each other, in those relationships. And reverse mentorship is awesome. Like, I love,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kira.
No, I was just going to say, I love, like, the generations coming up. Like, they're going to shake things up in ways that we are not ready for, and I love it.
Yeah, we need it.
But we totally need it. But, and I think that there's so much to learn. We can learn from each other,
Well, and as one of the things that I never thought I would do, I've had the opportunity for 2 different institutions to be a professor and a lead mentor for aspiring school administrators. And so I've been able to use some of the lessons learned, through my younger students and mentees to then be able to expand upon those and really help fuel into administrators who are going to be leading schools or leading sites or leading district offices, and help develop them and help them remember the things that are most important in their work.
Awesome. Yeah. I love all the work that you're doing. It's so important.
Thank you.
It's so important. I mean, this is not a work podcast, but like the things that you're doing it's not work. It's like, it's life changing, touching people in ways that they just don't get in other spheres, I think.
Well, we have to build people up. We have to build them. We have to pour into each other.
Yeah.
We just have to.
Yeah, that's what I try to do too. I don't always get it right, but I try. I certainly try. I have one last question. I know we've talked about a lot of different things, but what is something that just sparks pure joy for you?
The thing that comes to mind, everything seems to be in a performance related, a lot of it. And I found myself when I went to see Ragtime last year, and I was sitting next to three very handsome men, all of whom were Caucasian. And I sat there by myself in my seat, and I contemplated how that story is still so relevant today.
Yeah.
And I started to weep. And in other moments of the show, I found that this man that I just said hi to had reached over and put his hand on my arm.
Mm.
There were no words.
Then, yeah, not needed.
Not needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as a musician, as a teacher of singing, as a judge of choral art, if you will, to hear the glorious voices of these artists on stage and how they can provoke and evoke that level of emotion just with their technical abilities and their artistry, it made me weep because I was so proud of them and moved by them. And then I sat there, do they know the impact that they have right now on just this one row? I don't, I'm just right here with the three guys on my right. So, but I have those experiences often. And they usually deal with me being quiet, me listening, me having my eyes wide open, and having my heart open to receiving.
That's exactly what I was just going to say to you. You're open to receiving it. That's
I'm
why.
open.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens with people that I know personally and love. And sometimes it's just with a stranger who happens to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of my ties to the arts. And not to diminish the composers and such, I mean, because they all deserve their credit. But that's what moves me.
Yeah. 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 Because you're open to it. Because you're open to it, it moves you. I mean, it's your world, right? It's part of your world. But even so, you're open to being touched and moved by it, and therefore, if it's there, it happens.
Well, at the end of that show that night, the gentleman next to me, he says, "It shouldn't be like this." And I go, "You're right." And he just hugged me.
Aww.
Perfect strangers.
Yeah.
Different parts of the country.
Yep.
And I go, "But that's what makes this so special."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am proud for my little nugget of participation in it to have planted little bitty seeds here and there, or at least watered seeds that were already planted. And going back to me showing up, I get to show up and say, what you're doing matters.
Yep. Yeah. That's amazing. I think that's a good place to end.
All right.
Because, yeah, what it matters. Art matters, heart matters, kindness matters. All of these things
Because if
matter.
we keep going, I'm gonna cry again probably.
I know, and I don't want to. I might do that too. I might be crying again too. You're the first person that's made me cry.
Oh my word. Well, thank
Yeah,
you for that. I take that as a compliment.
absolutely. It takes a lot, to be honest, but yes. Yeah. Thank you for your time and for doing this and for all of your heart and wisdom and kindness and loveliness. I really appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you for having an interest in my story and for thinking I had something of worth and value to share.
And I was right.